Hello everyone and welcome back to New Horizons. Now on version 2.3.0 which released a few days ago. And to be honest with you, after the update I'm not sure if anything has broken for us. That is something we'll have to investigate today. This episode I want to start some new projects since we finished ore processing last time. Well, not exactly finished, there's still quite a bit of work to do over here. And if you're wondering about the chests, they still exist. They will be removed by the end of the episode though, I promise you that. Some of them are actually empty though. Which is cool. I've been doing a bit of filtering here between episodes. Yeah, so there's a few things I want to do today. The first is double check our blast furnaces here, and this thing, they removed tungsten steel. Yeah, in the new update, they actually replaced tungsten steel with something called TPV, which for us gets automatically converted. But yeah, I can't believe they removed tungsten steel coils. It's the best looking one. This also has some other implications for EV progression, but most of it isn't going to really affect us since we're past that point in the game. But there is a whole bunch of other changes, which you can check out actually in my newest video if you haven't seen that already. I released that a few days ago. But we will certainly cover all the changes here in the Let's Play world as we encounter them. So the first task for us today is to head out to the Twilight Forest. And I wanted to collect some live root. You can find this normally underground in some caves or underneath trees, unsurprisingly. The live root we can pulverize into dust and then mix with iron and gold to get ironwood dust. Cook those into ingots, and we now have one of the best materials to make soft mallets. If we have some sticks here. Oh no, we have NEI synchronization on. That's a no-no. Some of my configuration settings are not 100% the way they were before. However, after configuring all the machines last episode, our current soft mallet has seen better days for sure, and this ironwood one is pretty much the best material in the game. All you really need from a soft mallet is durability, and they can only be made from rubber or plastics, or steel leaf I guess. But yeah, this takes the durability from 25,600 all the way up to 307,200. Yeah, you know what, we'll make two of these. One to craft the maintenance hatches and so on. It's quite unlikely we're ever going to have to replace this, but something we are going to have to replace is these wire cutters. And we have some spare HSSE. HSSE we used for all of our turbines, which has received a fancy new texture update here. In the new version, there is a resource pack to get rid of this change. It converts it to more of a squared look, which honestly I'm a fan of after seeing it for a while. And comparing it with the old one here, you know what? The old one is not too bad. It's really, I kind of like both of them. What do you guys think? Yeah, I think we go with the new one for now. So the wire cutter upgrade I want to make into the automatic version, the electric version, which I believe is the automatic snips. And we couldn't make these before because they require something called white metal. And the white metal is made in the alloy blast smelter with platinum, tin, antimony and copper. Once we do that, we can solidify into the gear. As is the case with all the other tools, you can make the wire cutters out of basically any material in Gregtech. We're going to go with the HSSE though, I think this is backwards. Since this gives us a durability of 1.4 million. Yeah. We get some fireworks. We gotta make sure we charge this thing. And we now have one more electric tool to add to our collection. So the old ones were pretty slow, embarrassingly slow. And the new one? Oh, it's instant. Nice, that is awesome. So do you guys remember the whole sequence about crafting the Grandmaster Magic Energy Absorber? Yes, that one. Well, we are going to start off today crafting another one of those things. Oh yes, I was looking for a million reasons not to craft this thing, but not crafting it would be lazy, so we're going to craft it. Specifically though, we're only crafting the Master Magic, not the Grandmaster Magic, which powers the Applied Energistic system. Still though, the Master should give us 1 amp of passive HP power, and it's going to help us tremendously here for the next project. And speaking of which, I will reveal all here soon. There is a reason for all this madness. But for now, I guess enjoy multiple hours of crafting condensed down into, I don't know, 30 seconds? We have got some Thumbcraft infusions to do and a lot of grind ahead of us. Strap yourselves in. Oh boy, this is going to be tedious. You know, the one thing I didn't consider when I decided to craft this thing is the void metal requirement. You guys remember this? An even bigger tangent here. We're back in the Twilight Forest, since the only place we can get void metal at the moment, as far as I'm aware, is to find it in the wells here. And void metal, we are only one short. We got 3 last time, we used 2 for the Grandmaster last craft. So we need a single piece of void metal, and it took me like 2 hours the last time to find it. And yeah, we haven't even started today's project either. Okay, what are the chances we can get it in this first well? What do you think? I'd very much doubt it. Okay, no chest here. No chest. Oh nice, we got one of the marshmallows. Not exactly what we're looking for today though. I really just want this void metal. Oh, we are so committed now. We have to see this through. There it is! Finally, it's been like, I don't know how long it's been. And we're drowning. Nice. Nice. And we got 5 of them. That's awesome. Yeah, I was just about to give up there for a few hours. But no, we can continue. We can continue. Okay, let's find the portal out of here. Yeah, look at all this. I've explored like so much of this Twilight Forest. There it is. Oh yeah, after a very lucky void metal find, we return back to the base, finish off the last infusion for the Master Magic Energy Absorber, and then take the Tier 2 rocket over to Mars. We need something to power this absorber, and we only have 1 dragon egg. Yeah, so at the end of the Mars dungeon, inside the boss room, we can find these creeper eggs. The last time we were here, I had no idea how to collect these things. Apparently, all you have to do is drop them on a torch, similar to the vanilla dragon egg. Since we are here, I'm just going to collect them all. I think we only need 1 of these things though. And having this on top of the Master Magic Energy Absorber, I don't know what's going on over here. I guess there's some bacteria, I don't actually know what this is. Yeah, having these eggs on top of the absorber will generate us passive HV power. 14 eggs, that should be more than we need ever. Alright everyone, so what is the plan for today? I know it's a bit late saying that, what are we, like 10 minutes into the episode? But I've been putting together a little chest here of everything that we're going to need today. In fact, we're still a few machines short, but we are going to be starting our crop and agricultural... what do we want to call it? We are going to be starting our crop and agricultural empire. Yes, we'll go with that one. And sure, it's a bit late in the game to start crops, right? But better late than never, and crops are going to be very important for us. So we have been doing a lot of chemistry here, right? And pretty much all of the chemistry somewhere takes some form of oxygen. Well, that is something that crops can help us with, and we can basically make it passively. Another thing that we've been going through like crazy, which we should have set up a very long time ago, is rubber automation. We coat a lot of cable, or coat a lot of wire into cable using rubber, and this is also something that crops can solve. Glowstone is another one for all the lighting, which we still have to add to our base. I mean, there is so many things we can get with crops. Yellow stone lily, which is effectively endstone dust, and we can centrifuge this for tungstate, which is tungsten and tungsten steel. Platinum, which we're going to need a lot of here, and also helium, which also becomes relevant in the blast furnaces. And that is just 3 or 4 crops, and there is hundreds. I'm not sure if it's hundreds, but there is a lot of crops that you can get here. So yeah, we are going to be starting our agricultural empire. Since we've waited so long though, there is some extra tools that can help us with this. including the world accelerator. The one that we already have is medium voltage. We're also going to craft the HV1 just because. But we need a location for all of for this farming empire, right? This agricultural empire. We need somewhere to farm all these things. And as you can probably guess, the mesa here that we're in, actually I think it's called hot forest. This is all hot forest, effectively mesa biome. It's terrible for the crops, and they are very picky. The best biome is actually this one over here. I don't remember what it's called. Is it fungi forest? Which is not too far away. We're currently a couple hundred blocks away from the valley over here to the west. Yeah, this is all fungi forest. We get the most environmental benefit if we put the farms here. The thing is though, we need power, we need item transfer, and we need to be able to teleport over here easily. Since there's going to be a lot of back and forward to our base, especially in the early game. Especially in the early part of our crop empire, when we don't have necessarily all the seeds, and so we have to do a lot of manual breeding. We need a way to easily get back to the valley and then over to the crops. So the plan when I picked this location, the seed for the world, was actually to put them over here. Instead though, we are going to collect the quest reward from the space race tab. And you get a choice of reward after you visit the moon, so we could have got this a while ago. There's a choice between some loot bags, or the other one is a personal dimension. I don't know who would ever go with this one. Oh yeah, and there's some more of those marshmallows. In fact, the quest even warns here, the loot is lame, don't pick this one. Yeah, we are certainly going to go with the personal dimension. So it's just a checkbox after we visit the moon. We get the portal, and it's going to go right here. It's pretty central in the base. I'm not sure if we can move this, so I want to make sure it is actually in the center. So this doesn't necessarily have to be a void dimension. In fact, when you first click the portal, you get some options on the way you want to build the world. But this is a one-time thing, so we have to be careful here. And there is another very important factor about the crops. It's in one of these quests, it tells us somewhere. Set up camp in a swamp or jungle type biome around Y130. So one of the environmental stats is actually the Y level that you place the crops at. Anything above Y128 gives you the maximum benefit. So to account for that and make sure we spawn at Y128 when we make the other side of this portal, we're going to add air and we're going to add 120. I think we can do it here. Or 129. You know what, let's just do 130. 130 blocks of air. That means it's going to place it at Y130. We want to change the biome to jungle, since that is the second best. There's a long list of biomes, since GTNH adds custom biomes. The best we can select is the jungle, that gives us the highest environmental stats. At least of the ones that are available through this portal. We don't want weather, we don't want trees, we don't want foliage. We probably don't want clouds. I'm not sure if those affect the crops, but just in case we're going to turn those off. The sky color you can also adjust, but I believe you can do this afterwards, so it doesn't really matter what we pick here. We can adjust this later on. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Jungle, Y130. We can create the portal. That's going to create us dimension 180. And then when we take this, we should get an empty void dimension at Y131. And just to double check, shift right click, and yeah, we can change the sky color here. And the other benefit to this is there's no mob spawns ever, and it's also always daytime, it's always noon, which is another important factor for the crops, is the time of day. And honestly, if I was playing alone, I would set up the base in the void. Actually, maybe I wouldn't have set it up in the void, because it's just very boring for me, right? And I have to enjoy my own base, and this valley I definitely enjoy, so yeah, the main infrastructure is still going to be here. It's just crops and potentially bees are going to be through that portal. So before we can get started, I do have to set up a bit of an area here in the void, and also remind myself of the complicated stats of IC2 Crops. There's a lot of hidden mechanics. Things which are not immediately obvious, which do have a huge impact on the way that the crops grow. So getting all the crops that we want is gonna take many hours. I suspect like 60 hours, maybe. Maybe even more than that. And it might be that we look into some sort of OpenComputers bot to automatically farm for us. For now though, I'm going to try to do it manually and rely on the world accelerators to try to speed this up. But I have a feeling this might be a very long cut, I'm not sure. Either way, I guess this marks the beginning of the Empire, and we will see what kind of luck we have here. So right now we're at currently 824, when did it get all the way up there? Look at this Thumbcraft with the perfect message. Just in time right there. Oh no, Thumbcraft, you do not understand, this is just the beginning.
drunk, can you please speak up? No one will screw up, but baby, I'm glad you're someone to.
Or maybe not. On the other hand, look at this. So I am just about to go live. Like, I'm literally just about to hit the button here. And look what we got. I look over and I see that tiny bit of orange mixed with the sugarcane. That is not sugarcane. That is in fact stickreed. I want to be careful not to break it. The chance of that happening is, I don't know what the chances are, but it's extremely low. But it's also an extremely important crop to have, and it only took a couple of hours actually, much less than what I was expecting. So yeah, I'm gonna go live right now, make a bunch of progress, and then I'm gonna come back here and explain what we've got. Just keep in mind that we got stickreed. That is gonna be important. Oh, that is so awesome. That is awesome. Nice. So here we are, about 10 hours after we started the farming and agricultural empire. And the first piece of good news is we're getting through the backlog of ores. To be honest though, I'm not sure we're going to get through it all. There is just so much to clear, but all of this, you'll be happy to know, is gone. These are now all empty. We still have these 7 chests here, some of which have some empty spaces in them, but yeah, these are pretty much full. And then there's also like 2.5 chests here. Having a look here at the processed resources, there is a lot. This is filling up quite nicely. I'm liking it. The slowest part of this thing seems to be the processing rate. Some of the recipe times I've seen in this thing hit like 700 or 800 seconds, and it's due to the new batch mode, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. It just takes a while to get through it all. Some of the other things which are broken though was actually our circuit recipe. For any of you guys who have encoded recipes with EV nanoprocessor assemblies, I'm sure this applies to some other circuits. There is now the new SMD inductor, which is made using platinum and neodymium rings. This was implemented in the game before, but it didn't have a recipe. It seems like now we have to actually use this. I haven't encountered any other issues related to the patterns, but we have a significant amount of new patterns in this temporary interface down here. And this is part of the Farming and Empire project. I don't know what I'm gonna I keep calling it a different name every time, but you know what I mean, right? But hold on a second, this doesn't look very agricultural, right? This is all PC components. Exactly. We are going to use technology to help us farm, because the IC2 Crops have quite a bit to them. Alright, so I've went ahead and set up some new areas here, which is going to be for the automation. This is going to be a lot of fun. I set something similar up to in Season 1, but basically what we need to do is make sure that we can get a reliable way of making more seeds and making more crops. Because whenever you break these, you only ever get one seed, unless it is a vanilla crop or some sort of special case, usually the lower tier crops, where the output itself, in this case sugarcane, is the thing that you plant, and this becomes the seed. But in that case, it becomes a fresh seed, and therefore it doesn't have all the stats on them. So whenever we scan a crop, it reveals some new information. As you can see there, we have the stage, we have stats, we have the plant, and then we have the environmental stats. So there is 10 different stats we have to keep an eye on, and like 15 different mechanics, which we're about to go over here. There will be a test at the end, so I hope you guys are paying attention. Dark visions fill your mind, yeah. Thank you, Thumbcraft. No, I'm going to try to break this down to make it as simple as possible. But basically, what we're trying to accomplish here is to get an easy way to make more crops, and also ensure that we can level the crops to get the highest possible stats, or the most beneficial. As you'll see in a second, the highest does not necessarily equal the best. So due to the complexity of the situation, we are going to build a bot to do it automatically for us, which we crafted during the live stream. It took about 3.5 hours to craft all these components. It doesn't look like very much, but as soon as you start to look at the recipes, it's a huge mess. There is one thing I forgot to craft though during the live stream, and we're going to have to research the magic mirror. It is forbidden knowledge, so we have to take on a little bit of warp. And if you guys are curious on the overall requirements, if you want to also set this up, that's a new one. I don't remember ever seeing that before. Primordium. Yeah, if you guys also want to set this up, I'm going to try to make it easy to follow along with. But just know that you need at least an EV circuit assembler, and you have to do a little bit of Thumbcraft research. And Motas should connect the dots here. Yes, perfect. And we're going to get warp. Permanent warp. And for this to work, you also need enthomic tinkering. You need a transvector interface and then transvector dislocator. So one more research. Okay, so we got the research. We should already have the transvector binder or interface. We have to convert this into the dislocator. How bad is the recipe here? 2 LV circuits, ender pearl plates, thaumium screws. What on earth was that? You know what that sounded like? That sounded like the explosion when you land on a different planet. What on earth? Wait, was that outside? Was that up here? There is no evidence on the surface here. Wait a second. Oh, you know what that was? It was Thaumcraft. Thaumcraft got me there. It definitely got me. Okay, that was okay, let's upgrade this transvector interface. We need also some mirrored glass. Oh, I do not believe that. It actually got me there. That's funny. Oh yeah, and of course we also got some new travel anchors, which is something we should have crafted a very long time ago. We got one over here at the blast furnaces. We're gonna have to melt some ender pearls down. Yeah, we got one at the blast furnaces, we got one inside the clean room, which can be put in the floor. We can in fact put it right here. We can give it a name, and we can also pull an icon from any eye in this slot right here, and that will effectively give it a label. So over on the HV one, we have an HV circuit. We also have one at the terminals, and then we have one in ore processing down here. We'll have to make sure we restart this. Yeah, so we got our 8 liquid ender cells, which apparently, I just spent a few seconds trying to get this to craft. We need to put this inside of universal cells, which are a shapeless craft from the empty cell. It's effectively the same item, but this one can hold uneven amounts of fluid, whereas this one can only hold a full bucket. We do need a full bucket, but the recipe calls for the universal cell. And then some quicksilver and glass panes, we get mirrored glass. And then we can use the mirrored glass to upgrade the transvector interface. LV circuits, ender pearl plates, and thaumium screws. And this gives us with some more V. Yeah, and Thaumcraft is another huge project, which has kind of been put on hold for now. There is just so much to do in this pack, it's crazy. But one day, we'll get to this one day. For now, we just use it for the odd craft. Alright, we got the transvector dislocator. And we'll make sure we scan this. Yeah, and then other than the dislocator, this is the other list of materials that you'll need. Along with some way to give the system power. We're just going to use an LV battery system. It doesn't use very much power, to be honest. Alright, so let's build a chemical reactor. You guys remember that? Only this time, let's build a robot. And from what I remember, this takes a while to assemble. So we're going to do the assembly process first. And it has to be assembled inside an electronics assembler. I think the higher tier of power you give it, the faster it will go. Although I'm not entirely sure about that. We are going to give it EV power though, since we can. And we are going to do that using this battery system that we have. So this is the magic energy absorber, which we crafted, creeper egg on top. This actually only generates HV power, but we're sending it into an EV battery buffer just to give us a bit more power storage. And that's feeding a couple of transformers into some world accelerators. We'll get onto those later on. But for now, we're going to switch this into some 16x aluminium cable and then into the electronics assembler. It has to go through a piece of cable, I believe, to power this machine, since it's not a Gregtech machine. First, we are going to need to create a BIOS for it. So we need the EEPROM, which you can just craft in a circuit assembler. The EEPROM gets crafted with the OpenComputers manual, and this turns it into a Lua BIOS. And if you know anything about computers, you know what a BIOS is, right? It's pretty much the code that the system runs off from default, and then on top of that, we install the OS. We have the OpenOS floppy disk, which is also craftable. But it's very important that you turn the EEPROM into the Lua BIOS before you send it through the assembler. And then from here, what we want to do inside the assembler is insert the computer case. There is different tiers of computer case. I believe you need the tier 3 for this, which is the most expensive. But this gives you the most capacity to add extra parts to your robot. So what we're going to add is a memory tier 2. I accidentally made 2 of these things. We only need 1. A central processing unit tier 2. A hard disk drive tier 1. A geolyzer. The EEPROM Lua BIOS. A disk drive. A screen tier 1. A keyboard. A graphics card tier 1. An internet card. Redstone card. Inventory upgrade and inventory controller upgrade. And then we don't need to insert the operating system here. The extra memory we crafted, we don't need to insert the transvector. We have an extra manual which we don't need, and the charger is placed separately. So yeah, should look something like this. We can assemble, and it's going to take 3 minutes and 15 seconds. That's not too bad. In the meantime, we can set up a space for this robot to work in, and it has very particular requirements based on the code that's written. I also want to say that I did not write the code here. I'm definitely not a programmer here, so yeah, this was taken off the GTNH wiki, which I'll leave a link to in the description. On the wiki page, it lists a 9x9 field next to a 13x13. We're going to change things a little bit here. So what we have on the right hand side is a 5x5 field. You can ignore this one here. So it's 5x5, and then separated one block, we have a 13x13. And this is the farming area the bot will work in. And then we'll also need one of these chests. Actually, two of these chests. Might as well take from the supply of compressed chests, which now are available to us. And also, just for fun, we'll make sure we keep this system going. Let's give it a whole bunch of new ores to process. Machines are running, that is good, that is good. And I'm in a hole. So on the very first dirt block, we're going to place the charger. This has to be given a redstone signal, so I believe I have a lever in here. We should see a green light in the front. I'm not sure that's in the correct orientation, we will soon find out. Next to the charger, we place the first chest. Next to that chest, we place another chest. And then we place the transvector dislocator. Like so. And I think this little spinny part has to be facing this spot right here, which also has to be dirt. Or farmland, I guess, but yeah, it has to be dirt. So in that time, we now have a fully assembled robot. I gave it the name of Chiral. We are obviously going to rename this guy to Breeks. You guys all know who Breeks is, right? Okay, so we got our little robot here. If we place him down, looks pretty fancy. But we have to do some coding to get this guy operational. The first thing is give this thing some power. And this is where we learn we probably placed this incorrectly, I'm not sure. Let's try to power it from the bottom. Maybe we just point the battery buffer into the cable. I'm gonna hope this works. Like so. I also have an elevator down here. I'll explain what all this underneath part is in a second, but there's a lot to get through, so I want to stay focused on the bot here. Okay, so if we put some batteries in here, it does light up, okay. And the bot should be getting energy, perfect. Okay, so now what we want to do is turn him on. There's an on button. Uh-oh. Oh, right, we have to give him the floppy disk. Yeah. We have to give him the operating system. Now we can turn him on, right? There's a bunch of funky sounds. It's so awesome. I'm going to turn off the overlay. Yep, it gives us a note here. The home directory is read-only. So we have to actually install the OS. Right now, this is just on a floppy disk. It's not actually in his own hard drive, I guess. So to correct that, all we have to do is type install. Install OpenOS. We want to hit Y, or yes. And then it's going to install the OS from the floppy disk into his own internal memory. It's going to ask us to restart the system, which we obviously want to do. Takes a while. He's warming up. Yeah, this really does take a while. Come on, game. You can do it. You can do it. Installation complete. Reboot? Yes. That's gonna turn him off and turn him back on. And we now no longer need this OpenOS. If we just double check, we can turn this guy off and turn him on. He should boot to the OS automatically, which he now does. Okay, so now we need to install the program which will farm this area for us. And to do that, we can paste this string with middle mouse click. Control V doesn't work in this terminal. So this will install the program. Then we type /install. And this will download the files from the internet into the bot itself. Now this is the reason why we added the internet card upgrade when we assembled the robot, so that we can do this. It's not strictly necessary. I believe there's a way to load it onto a floppy disk and then load it on here. But it's much easier just to craft the internet card and then download it directly into the bot. So yeah, now it's downloaded a bunch of files. These are all the programs: auto crossbreed, auto spread, auto stat. Those are the files that are the programs that we want to run. And now because we have a slightly different configuration to the default, we have a 5x5 field and not a 9x9. we have to edit the configurations of Breeks. So to do that, we can type edit config.lua, and this shows us the config file. And as you can see here, the farm size is 9. We want to change this to 5. Control S to save. And then Control W to get out of this program. Back to the home menu. And now we are ready to go, right? I think, assuming we haven't messed anything up, this guy should be able to automatically farm for us. And I'm going to explain what that does after we switch this dirt out with fertilized dirt. It's important for this farm to be fertilized dirt, and it's important for all the other farms to be regular vanilla Minecraft dirt. The reason for that is because we don't have a space to hydrate this soil, because the bot is going to expect to be able to use all of the available space in the 13x13, so there's no space for water, especially when we get to the middle. But we also lose environmental benefits to the stats of the crops if we plant them on fertilized dirt. That is perfectly fine over here next to the bot, because we're not looking for speed here. We just want the bot to automatically give us the best stats. And the cool thing about the fertilized dirt is you don't need a water source nearby. You can simply hoe the ground and it will stay this tilled version. Alright, so with all the blocks swapped out, what we need to do now is give Breeks a couple of tools to do his job. The first is the transvector binder, which we want to bind to the dislocator, and then bind to this block here. And then the binder has to specifically go in this slot. We also need to give him a spade, this type of spade. We're going to give him our own, but we'll probably craft another. There's another explosion. It's still happening. Yeah, so we've given him a spade, we've given them the binder, and then we also have to fill the first chest full of crop sticks. And the second chest he's going to deposit any extra seeds into. And now we just have to plant one of the crops for him to get started. We are going to pick the stickreed. So pretty much the strategy here with the crops is to get stickreed as soon as you can. We were very fortunate to get the stickreed here. So what we have at the moment is a 722, a 602, and a 503. Definitely not ideal stats, but this bot should be able to give us ideal stats. Yeah, so the bot here will give us greater than 21, less than 24 growth, 31 gain, and then 0 resistance. Those are the ideal stats you want for the crops. But yeah, I think at this point all we need to do is plant 2 of these stickreed in the first corner of the farm, and then run the program autostat, and then also do cleanup, exactly as it's written here. And autostat will try to get those stats we just listed, and then do cleanup will try to empty its inventory every time it makes a run. So let's see if we messed anything up. And it should go 5x5 since we edited the config. If it goes past this, I'm going to be... well, that means we done something wrong. Okay, it does go back. It does go back. It goes back to charge, and then it should repeat, right? It's going to pick up any extra crop sticks that it needs. Plants the double. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. This is perfect. Okay. Yes, Breeks, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Okay, so it's going to make a checkerboard pattern. So the way that the breeding with the crops works... oh, we just got a weed right there. That's not what we want to see. So the way that the crossbreeding works is... these are effectively the 2 parent crops. If you have double crop sticks next to the 2 parents, you can have them next to each other with 1 space in between. And it can be diagonal like this. As long as there's an adjacent stage 2 or above crop next to it, it has the chance to mutate into or crossbreed onto this crop here. There is a very high chance for it to be the same crop, i.e. stickreed of the parent, but it also could crossbreed into a different crop, which is how we got things like this yellow stone lily right here, and also a nether stone lily, and we also have a salt root, which are also particularly useful. There's a few more that we have here, but yeah, we'll talk about the different seed types later on. And then also when it crossbreeds, it has a chance to mutate the stats of the crop. So again, when we look at the tooltip there, we can see the stats are growth 7, gain 2, and resistance 2. The growth affects the growth speed, so the higher the better. However, if it's above 24, which is why we set the config to be greater than 21, less than 24, if it's greater than 24, it has a chance to act like a weed, and it will spread to nearby crops and make them weeds. And when you have weeds, those will spread throughout the whole field and potentially destroy all the crops. I've had that happen before. Trust me, we do not want to have that happen. So to ensure that doesn't happen, although we give up some growth speed, we want to make sure we keep the growth stat below 24. The next stat is gain. So gain will affect the crop drop whenever you harvest. So Stickreed is going to give us sticky resin, which is pretty much rubber. And so the more gain we have, the more drops we'll get when we harvest the crop. Nice, he's taking care of the weeds over there. That's awesome. There's a weed right there. I do want him to take care of that as soon as possible. Otherwise it could spread here to the parents. And it's completely random on the timings. But yeah, effectively we want the maximum gain, which is 31. And then the third stat is resistance. Resistance is resistance to environmental factors. So the higher resistance that you have, the less likely you are to trample the crops, which is pretty cool. However, there's also an extra layer on top of the resistance stat. For us to understand resistance, we have to look at the next line here in Wayla, which is the environmental stats. So here we have nutrients, we have humidity, we have air quality, and there's also a grow ability, which is not directly shown here in the tooltip. So the nutrients, we can feed these things with the crop matrons. Yeah, crop matrons and also the crop managers. This block right here is what we're going to use to automatically farm the crops eventually, once we have all the seeds we need. And these things can be given fertilizer to increase the nutrient stat on the crop. But the more nutrients we have for the crop, the better, right? The faster it's going to grow. We can also give it water automatically with the crop manager. I believe that also increases the nutrients. As you can see there, it also has a plant, fertilizer, water, and Weedex. So Weedex is the third thing that the crop manager can give here. We are going to have less than 24 growth. So in theory, there shouldn't ever be any weeds. The only way you can get weeds is if you have empty crop sticks here. They will randomly appear. Or if you have greater than 24 growth on the stats of the crops. That's the only way that weeds will appear. So yeah, we don't necessarily need to worry about Weedex. We can pretty much forget about this. The next environmental factor is humidity. And humidity is affected mostly from the biome. So if you'll remember, we picked the jungle biome, which has one of the highest humidities base values. So just by having our crops up here, we're having a humidity level of 12, which is really not too bad. And then the third stat on there is air quality. And air quality is determined by the Y level that the crops are at. So we're at Y131 up here. And we also have a free access to sunlight and nothing above the crops. So if you put blocks on top, that's going to lower the stats. You want to make sure these are as open as possible. I believe if they're on their own as well, it's going to give them a higher air quality stat. Like if you have this in the middle of an empty field, it's going to increase it. But obviously you have to make some sacrifices, right? To keep the crops next to each other for you to be able to farm them viably. Additionally, we can also get some free stats by having some dirt blocks underneath. So there is 3 blocks of dirt and then the farmland and then the crop. Sometimes though, in the case of yellow stone lily and a bunch of other crops, they have additional requirements. Like for example, yellow stone lily has to have end stone underneath, right here. And this goes on the 4th block. So I made this area down here for us to be able to easily swap out the last block of dirt. But having the farmland here, if you use fertilized soil, like what we have in the bots one, if we use fertilized soil, we do not get the extra bonus, since it only checks the first block that the crop is planted on, which is why we have to make sure this is vanilla farmland. And the bonus from this, from having the farmland underneath, beats the bonus of having the fertilized soil, which does give you a small bonus to the crops. So how does this all come back to resistance? Well, there is this so-called growability stat. Your crop will require a certain level of NHA, that is nutrients, humidity, air quality. Try to reach or surpass this, or the crop will either not grow or even die. Basically disappear. Each crop is different and higher tiers and stats require more. Growability is determined by the difference between what the crop needs in terms of NHA and what it actually has. So basically the higher the resistance, which doesn't give us much benefit in and of itself, that also increases the bar that the growability has to pass. So we want to make sure that these can grow in any type of environment that we provide, even with the sacrifices we have to make since we're putting crops next to each other, and there may occasionally be a couple of blocks around them, or the light levels might not be exactly optimal, for example. Things like that, we want to reduce the chances of any crops popping off. So for that reason, we forfeit resistance, and we make sure they have maximum growability that we can provide. So that is the reason, again, we want 21 to 24 growth, 31 gain, and 0 resistance. I hope he's not Oh, nice, and we even got a Olivia seed. I wonder where he's gonna place that. Doesn't he want to place it here? I'm not sure. It's quite possible that we've messed something up here and I haven't realized yet. Yeah, I'm gonna do some testing here. Yeah, so what was to follow was multiple hours of debugging. This little guy was just not cooperating whatsoever. The program basically kept crashing. There was some errors somewhere. Okay, third test, Breeks. What are you gonna do with that seed? You're gonna store it in this chest, right? Right? Once he comes back. He's gonna go over here. Oh no. No. Oh, this is a disaster. I don't believe it. But yeah, I thought I tested this. Obviously not enough. I ended up back in the Season 1 world where I had the original copy of Breeks working. And I noticed some differences in the code. So that led me through a huge rabbit hole trying to debug this whole thing. And I was at this all night trying to get Breeks to cooperate. He just was not having it. So things were a bit slow there for a minute, but we seem to be picking up the pace here. Breeks is doing his job nicely. Look at this guy. Being productive as ever. He's making up for lost time, that's for sure, because we are now on 847 hours played. Yeah, I've been at this for a while, but look at this. We are getting a crazy amount of crops in here. There is so many things. Sugar beets, which we just got not too long ago. This can give us a crazy amount of oxygen. Yeah, very, very efficient way to get a lot of oxygen. Especially if you have a lot of these seeds, which we should be able to do with Breeks here. We got things like Blackstone Lily, which can give us fluorine for polytetrafluoroethylene. Blackthorn, which can give us ink for Thaumcraft. The Terrawort, which can remove debuffs. Glowflower, which is glowstone. Even Brown Mushroom, which we can use to build our base with all the mist blocks. And then, yeah, things like Blaze Reed, which is Blaze Powder. Yeah, so many things, which we're going to make use of next episode. But I want to go over some of the changes I made to Breeks itself. I did change some of his config settings, and the first program I installed was basically the wrong one. I made sure to go back and change it in the edit. But yeah, this guy was not cooperating. I think he's working though. He seems to be working very well, and I've learned a few things as well. So the first question you might be asking is why we're using Stickreed. I realized I didn't actually explain that. Stickreed is one of the fastest growing crops, so it's probably one of the best to crossbreed with. And you can go through many different iterations of Stickreed very quickly, which means that it's much faster to get up to the maximum stats. Speaking of which, we're actually getting there. If you look on the growth stat, a lot of them are 20, 10, 0. This one is 18, 11, 0, 19, 12, 0. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. 21, 12, 0. This one is one of the closest. So Breeks right now is running the auto stat program. There's 3 different programs. The working farm here is now 6x6 and not 5x5, but it should be like that by default in the configs of the program that you download. And then also I had to move some of the chest positions here. If we take a look at Breeks' configs, let's break them. Yeah, opening up the config file here, you can see that the farm size is 6. It should be like that by default. The storage farm size is now 9. It does say in here don't change it, so I'm going to leave it at 9 instead of 13x13 on the left hand side. And then right here is the coordinates for the charger. So charger is 0, 0. That's where you initially place Breeks. This is 0, 0. 0, 1 is the stick container, the crop stick container, which is this chest. 0, 2 is going to be the farmland position. So the transvector dislocator is spun around 180 degrees. It used to face this block here, which is now a cropmatron. So that is on coordinate 3. Coordinate 4 is nothing, that's the cropmatron, and then coordinate 5 is the compressed chest. This is where he drops all the output. So the cropmatron here is fed some water using a reservoir underneath, and that keeps the water stat at 200, as you can see on the tooltip up there. It's a very, very cheap way to just speed things up overall, and it doesn't really cost us a whole lot. And then also underneath here we have a new power system. So I implemented a gas turbine. Yeah, pollution is another important factor with the crops, but yeah, we don't play with pollution. So we have just a super tank of benzene feeding a gas turbine that feeds the battery buffer, and that powers the charger to power Breeks, and then also runs along this cable to power the crop matron. And then also on the output chest we have a conduit sending it into some storage. We have some filing cabinets over here to hold all the different seeds, and we have a lot of seeds here. I think a lot of these are actually getting kind of full. And they only stack if they have the same stats, so yeah. Breeks has been running for a number of hours by now. There is 2 more config options though. Make sure this take care of drops is set to true. That means it does store the output in the chest here. Otherwise I think it gets stuck. That was causing some of the crashes earlier on. So make sure take care of drops is true, and then also keep new crop while min-maxing. I think this is false by default. That means he will store any of the extra crops instead of breaking them, and he will move them using the transvector dislocator. The transvector dislocator, by the way, is just a way to transplant the crops, since even when Breeks breaks them, he doesn't have a 100% chance of getting the crop back with the spade. So the transvector dislocator first teleports the crop to this block space, and then it will teleport it to wherever he binds. He should be able to do that automatically. But yeah, the AutoStat program works in a checkerboard, so you have to plant the first checkerboard in the odd numbers, and then any of the even numbers, he will basically transplant into the storage farm. Anything that's different to the ones that you have in the odd numbers. And the Stickreed he should replace on his own with any of the higher stats with the lower stats, and keep incrementing over the stats of the crops. So yeah, those are the 2 important things. Take care of drops true, keep min-maxing true, and then everything else should be default. Assume bare stick true, and then best stat well spread in true. I think that's on by default. So yeah, we were running them on the AutoStat program, which is going to give us the best stats of crops, 21, 31, 0. We can then switch them over to auto spread. I'm not going to do that right now, but we have to change the configuration of the farm, and that allows us to use the Stickreed as a seed it allows us to use the Stickreed as parents, basically, and then we can plant any other type of crop, any other species of crop in the middle, and it will use the 2 parents Stickreed to hopefully crossbreed the stats onto the other species, and that is the way we're going to use the Stickreed best stat crops to basically pass those genes onto the other species. I hope that made sense. That was... Now you can see why I wanted to put off crops for so long. But yeah, having this technology is going to make it so awesome. I hope you weren't too lost in that. I'm sure I could have explained some of that better, but yeah. There was a lot to do today. And I think that is also a good point to wrap up the episode. So what is our next steps from here? Well, I'm going to be here waiting on the Stickreed getting to maximum stats, and then we have to go through and double check what we want to actually farm. A lot of this we're just going to trash, like there's no need for us to farm carrots. But yeah, then we pretty much have to divide up the crop fields over there, which is going to be for auto farming. That is something we'll set up next episode. And we'll probably try to get a few more of these, well, maybe even a full field of sugar beets and black stone lily, white stone lily, some of the priorities. And then we have to set up processing back at the base. I want all the processing to be done here. Like we have to set up electrolyzers for sugar beet to give us oxygen. We have to set up storage for all the crops. So yeah, this is just the beginning of the crop empire. It's good though, it's good. We're getting a lot of this done, and this thing is still running. I did promise we were going to get rid of these chests, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Like, our system is just too slow. I did manage to empty 3 more chests, so yeah. We still have a little bit left to go here though, unfortunately. But yeah, that will be a much longer video than I initially intended. There's just so much information to get through. I don't know if you guys find it interesting or not. Maybe I should just cut straight to what we're doing, but I kind of feel like that removes a lot of the fun in troubleshooting, you know? Anyways guys, with that, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of your nice comments recently. Have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you all in the next episode of New Horizons.